Greetings and salutations, Monolithic Ethos here. As you may know, I recently flew to Dallas, Texas to attend Better Discourse III, a live conference comprising of notable social media political commentators, notably Actual Justice Warrior, Destiny, Jack Posobiec, Sydney Watson, John Doyle, etc. Now, I intended this video to be a vlog, however, the current lens that I use wasn't the best, especially when it comes to focusing and close-ups, so most of the recordings I have are a bad quality, very blurry in fact. However, I did take some iPhone footage and some pictures to serve as decent visual representations of my trip. So instead of being a traditional vlog that one would expect from Logan Paul or Tim Tracker, this video will instead be a summary of what I did. To begin with, I want to thank Thomas Sheedy, president of Atheists for Liberty, for booking me a hotel room for the weekend stay at Fort Worth, Texas. You might not be aware, but I edit videos for Thomas' YouTube channel, and if you haven't done so already, I recommend you guys to subscribe to his channel. Anyway, I headed to Texas a day before the Better Discourse conference. My plane took off early in the morning at around 6 a.m. Eastern Time, and arrived in Dallas Fort Worth Airport at around 7 a.m. Central Time. Being so early, I first went sightseeing around Dallas and stopped by Dealey Plaza, the site of the JFK assassination. It was somewhat smaller than what I expect, since a lot of the pictures and videos of Dealey Plaza that I had seen in documentaries and movies made it appear more spread out than it actually was. And yes, I visited both the Grassy Knoll and the 6th floor, which is now a gimmicky tourist trap museum. After examining this historical crime scene, I doubt anyone could have shot Kennedy from the Grassy Knoll, as I felt that the angle would have made it impossible to shoot Kennedy in the way that it actually happened. Someone had to be behind Kennedy for the bullet to penetrate his back through his throat and then hit Governor Colony, and when considering the headshot, why didn't the bullet exit through the left side of Kennedy's skull? No bullet was discovered inside Kennedy's brain, which means that JFK must have been shot from behind. Jim Jesus, an anarcho-capitalist YouTuber and host of Lawbert's podcast, said it best in regards to the JFK assassination.
I just don't see it. This is clearly a case of pareidolia, but let's say that it wasn't a pareidolia and it was a gunman. This is an extremely hard shot to take. When you're looking at from the book depository building, and it's going somewhat of a straight line, right? It's kind of there's not much movement. It's kind of going up a little bit, and especially since it's going up, it's easy, like the FBI guy said. It's a little bit easier shot to take because you don't have to correct as much because the gun's going to go that way. Correcting it up is fairly easy, but correcting and going across your own view, that's kind of a really difficult shot to take. In fact, Oliver Stone had hired snipers to try to emulate this, and then when one of them actually hit the target, it didn't hit them in the head, but when it actually hit him, it was a really horrible shot. It took a lot of tries. These were sharpshooters that he found the best of the best to do, and they couldn't do it. So either way, the Grassy Knoll does not make any whole lot of sense. Yes, it would have been a clear shot, but it probably would have hit Jacqueline, and if anything at all. And again, where'd the bullet go? The bullet went through his head, and where did it go? No one actually found another bullet across the street. So,
like I said before, Dealey Plaza is actually smaller than one would think. And if you actually have the time to head over to the actual site, including the 6th floor of the book depository, and see it with your own eyes, one will realize that the well-accepted narrative that Oswald killed Kennedy from the 6th floor seems to be the most possible. And if you are able to get into the 6th floor, which you can clearly see that the distance between the window in which Oswald fired his rifle and the spot where JFK was shot is way closer than one would expect. I recommend watching Jim's entire segment on the JFK assassination, in which he actually goes over to the Warren Commission report and the many conspiracy theories relating to the assassination. Returning to the subject of Better Discourse III, after exploring Dealey Plaza, I headed all the way west to Fort Worth to check into my hotel, where I met Thomas Sheedy, who was accompanied by Melissa Shan and her husband. Oh, let's not forget her dog, Gibbs. I should mention that I was staying at the same hotel complex as all the speakers, including the one and only Sean Fitzgerald, aka Actual Justice Warrior. Funny enough, I accidentally bumped into Sean at the front desk. My room key malfunctioned and I headed down to the first floor to have it fixed, where I stumbled upon Sean, who apparently was dealing with the same problem. Sean was shorter than I expected. We are the exact same height at 5'10", and I shouldn't have taken the tall Sean memes literally. Sean also looked more Hispanic in person, which should be expected as Sean has mentioned in one of his Instagram stories that he adjusts the coloring of his videos in a way to make his skin appear lighter. Way to go, Sean, for hiding your Puerto Ricanness. Don't worry, guys, I was able to restore his inner Boricua. Later that day, I hung around with actual Justice Warrior, his Puerto Rican girlfriend, Thomas Sheedy, and James Lindsay at the lobby as they were about to set up a pre-conference party for all the speakers. From what I can recall, the pre-conference party started out as a small get-together at the hotel block. Half the speakers showed up. Nikki House was there, Ariel Scarcella, Carrie Smith. Nuance Bro popped in despite not being a speaker at any of the panels and had been staying at a different hotel. And Justin Gibson, who was probably the only leftist who showed up. I briefly left with Thomas Sheedy and the Atheists for Liberty crew to have dinner at Whataburger, which by the way tasted amazing, though not as delicious as Junior's Colombian burger, which by the way, if you're around Central Florida, you need to try a Colombian burger from Junior's. After our dinner at Whataburger, we returned to the hotel, partied some more until around 10 p.m. when everyone decided to meet up at the Electric Cowboy, which for the record is not a gay nightclub despite the homoerotic name. I mean, gay nightclubs don't have square dancing or ladies night, wouldn't they? It was just a small dance floor with several bars. Speaking of bars, I actually got wasted that night, having to had some beers, vodka, and a soda whiskey cocktail called Jack and Coke. This is one of the reasons why I wasn't able to record anything from that night. The alcohol high unleashed my inner Latino as I danced with Sean's Puerto Rican girlfriend and some other lady named Violet since Sean was too Irish to dance. The next morning, after recovering from my hangover, I had breakfast with Sean where I briefly bumped into Destiny. Yeah, he was pretty short. Also, Lisa Reynolds came by to give me and Sean donuts, which, by the way, Clinton, you still owe me that date with Lisa Reynolds. Oh, and if Lisa's watching this, hit me up at CPAC Orlando next February. I'll use my Hispanic seduction powers, which I have the ability to do so since Puerto Ricans are basically vampires. We got to reenact the dance scene from Fright Night. Write that shit down on your calendar, Lisa. Anyway, Thomas, Nikki, and I ended up walking 30 minutes to the Better Discourse location. I met with a friend of mine from Discord and sat in the front row. This is me right here wearing an AJW bunny mask. Fun fact, on the Myth-Informed livestream, you can actually spot me among the crowd. Now here's some footage I was able to take during the conference.
That's ridiculous. To try to say that because somebody puts up a fact check, or because somebody puts up or bans certain types of content, they become all of a sudden a publisher of information? What do you think it means to publish something?
When you were getting funny, go ahead.
Yeah, I think here's a problem though. They're not just a neutral platform.
They don't have to be neutral.
Oh, where? Really?
Yes, really, yeah.
Yes, of course. So let's hear why they don't have to be neutral.
Because that's the law. You're not obligated. There is no we just talked about the First Amendment. If you started a private platform where you brought people on to speak, do you think that the First Amendment means that you have to let every single person come on? That's a violation of your First Amendment rights. If I start a forum and I want to talk about how cool dogs are, am I legally obligated to let cat lovers come and shit my forum up with how great their animal? It doesn't make any sense. Of course you don't have to be a neutral platform. Do you think Fox News is a neutral platform? Do you think CNN is a neutral platform? No,
You can sue Fox News. You can sue Fox News. You can literally sue them.
That are set on Fox
If they lie, you can sue them. If they defame you, you can sue them. If they slander you, you can sue them. That's the difference. When Facebook I'll give you an example of consequences. So recently, in Texas actually, a man's son died after taking the vaccine. He was 16 years old, the son was. When he posted GoFundMe to pay for the funeral, GoFundMe removes him.
You don't have a constitutional right.
Pause.
I'm sorry.
Because of that, obviously it becomes much more difficult to fundraise for that funeral. Now, why did they remove him? It's a literal fact that the vaccine caused this man's son's death, but they're saying because it's spreading vaccine misinformation that he can't fundraise there because then, of course, we bring attention to the fact that there might be side effects. Facebook removed people for saying that hydroxychloroquine was a legitimate solution, or at least to help while we're waiting for vaccines when it came to COVID. And then people got doctors were banned. People died. That many people died.
Are you first of all,
no, what I'm telling you is that there are real consequences when you are removing people because you're pretending to be an arbiter of information when you're literally removing experts.
For liberty and justice to be evenly experienced by all, and we still have work to do. But where do the rights of one person end and the other one begin? This day and age, the more people we bring to the table, individuals' liberty and justice can appear to overlap, and what we think those rights are coming into conflict. There's a very fine line, and our panel here today is going to discuss how precious that line is, and what does the future hold if we aren't careful and remain indivisible with liberty and justice for all. I am proud to introduce our second panel of the afternoon. Our moderator, the founder of Civility Dinners and co-host of Unsafe Space, Carrie Smith. Our speakers for the panel, former Navy officer, host of Human Events Daily, Jack Basovic.
These are OGs, these aren't Vipers.
These are OGs, these aren't Vipers. My brother found them in my parents' closet. We've had them since the 90s.
Welcome back to the stage, Stephen Bonnell. And my man who just hit 150,000 subscribers. Woo! Woo! The Sean Fitzgerald. And hosting the news and why it matters from Blaze TV, Sarah Gonzalez.
Sarah, I feel like your shoes need their own introduction.
I was hoping that NASA could see them from space when I was walking here. Was my goal.
You're giving Nico a run for his money.
You know, someone's got to do it. So
that's a great law to have. And so we see these giant racial disparities. The reason those racial disparities are bad is because no group is inferior or superior to another. That's the entire impetus behind why critical race theory analyzes these things.
No,
Because it disparities in education, in housing, in income, in wealth. If we see these, it must be because something is going wrong. Because people are not inferior.
Let me read to you from Dr. Kendi. Racial inequity is evidence, okay, sorry, I'll back up. To fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the Constitution that enshrines two guiding anti-racist principles. This was your definition from the beginning, by the way. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policy and the different racial groups are equals, or at least you mentioned the different racial groups are equals part. You said it grows out of all men are created equal. But the second assumption here is all groups are equal, and then any disparity in outcomes must be interpreted as racism, which is exactly either the univariate fallacy,
like literally
or the racism of the gaps.
Do you think any racial disparity would be considered that? Or maybe
that's what he said. That is the view from critical race theory.
One, he's not a critical race theorist. Is he a critical race theorist?
Here's the thing.
Is he a critical race theorist?
Explain the Appalachian achievement gap using this framework.
It's actually a great framework. I don't know why you pointed to him like it was a good point. Policy.
No,
it's policy.
The thing is how do you
policy?
When he says the Appalachian achievement gap, he's talking about how mountainous people tended to lag behind people in the plains. Like this is true.
Yes, and you know why? You know why? I'm from Appalachia.
Geographical disadvantages.
Bad policies.
No. What are you talking about?
Wait, what are you talking about?
If you had better access to the ocean than somebody on the mountains, then you were more likely to have trade. Trade creates economic prosperity. This is why typically areas where there's plains,
I thought you were talking about education.
Farms. That's what he's talking about with the Appalachian theory.
The Appalachian. Oh, I thought it was
talking about geographical.
I thought it was why Appalachians do bad in school, and I can point to bad policies.
Actually, mostly about cultural.
I don't want this to devolve into where we're just yelling over each other and people at home and watching online can't tell what we're saying.
It's taking progressive and active approaches. I want to say that Florida's been the most progressive state on COVID policies. They've been so forward-thinking. While everyone's been so conservative and trying to just keep things safe and just keep them all the way they are, they said, let's just take this new virus, let's take this new disease, let's accept it, and let's go forward, and let's not let it cripple us any more than it has. And that kind of amazing and dastardly confidence from such a man like Ron DeSantis, which I know everyone here loves him so much. And those of you guys that don't love him, you have a secret crush. You do, you want a man like that. But the truth of the matter is that he came on and said, we're going to set the policy, we're going to move forward. And he's the one with the open ports. He's the one with the cities that are thriving. He's where the Super Bowl gets, won. I mean, seriously, he's leading the charge.
And you know what happened today? They announced that for the first time, Republicans have now outpaced Democrats for voter registration in Florida. Because everybody's waking up, moving to Florida, where it's safe and effective and open for business. And so now, for the first time, we have more Republican voters registered than Democrats.
You can't walk in San Francisco without walking past corpses and fecal matter. You can't walk into a Safeway without seeing some brothers take some medicine or seeing them take something else. You can't do that. And so your question is America at its breaking point? Do you really see us as a union anymore?
I don't.
Okay. Elijah and I have talked about this to death, and I'm assuming that we can never find an endpoint on discussing it. I find this a particularly interesting topic of conversation simply because I'm looking at my home country, which hit its breaking point, went over the edge, and then fell into a ravine and is currently drowning. That's what I'm looking at. And it's beautiful, I'm going, wow, wonderful, never gonna get to go home. And that's a horrible place to be at. And then I look at America, which has all the makings of a country that could be so ridiculously successful again. And yet it's so divided. And people don't have any common ground and they don't agree on anything. And we have these discussions repeatedly that to my mind, don't have any actual benefit. And it's really my question at this point, in response to your question, is it time for a national divorce?
Now, during the middle of the conference, it was a 1-hour break time, so a lot of us ended up having lunch at a place called Rusty Tacos across the street. Now, I have a hard time remembering if this occurred at the taco joint or at the after party, but I came across this chick with big tits and a very tight, small shirt, who I remember seeing taking one of her straps down in front of her horny male peers. I'm pointing this out since the day after the Better Discourse event, she would go on a Twitter rampage claiming that actual Justice Warrior had stared on her boobs. Which is funny because I was wearing the same exact shirt as Sean, as well as, and this is a confession, had a peek of her dreaded Marxist titties. Anyway, after having lunch with Sean, I returned to the facility in which Better Discourse was taking place, where I had a chance to hang out with Jack Pozovic, Sydney Watson, Lisa Reynolds, John Doyle, and Eli Schaffer. I even had the chance to ask a question during the China panel.
Yeah, why don't we start the line really close to the stage then? That's not a bad idea.
Hello? Yeah, this is a question for Sherman Jack. Did the Tiananmen Square massacre happen?
On January 4th, 1989, a rebellion against the glorious CCP was put down. The extremists naturally were taken care of, and our country was then funded by all of you Americans, by investing more and more of your money in us. And so we thank you.
Once Better Discourse was over, everyone headed to the after party, which took place in some fancy pizza restaurant, where I get to have a little political debate with John Doyle, as well as having a few drinks with Sean and Nuance Bro. Now, there's a lot of other things I wish I could bring up, especially in regards to my interactions with notable people. However, I want to finish this video right here. In addition, I want to apologize for the lack of videos last month due to my tight schedule, but no worries, as I plan to upload more videos in the coming weeks. Anyway, please like and share this video, leave your thoughts in the comments section, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Also, remember, stay away from communist titties.